You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
That's not true. That's impossible.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of 2023, episode 154 of Making Tracks, brought to you by those fine folk over at fanfortracks.com. My name's Mark. As always, I am joined by a man up in the Midlands, a tall man. It's Mr. Mark Newbold. Mark, how are you doing? How was your Christmas, buddy?
Oh, Christmas was good. It went too fast like it always does. It cost too much money like it always does. How are you, Mark?
Getting there. Had a really horrible cough and cold and, I don't know, everything over Christmas.
Yeah.
Knocked me for six. But, you know, back on my feet, in the gym again today for the first time really this year. So I'd kind of managed to dodge most of the New Year's resolutioners who had come back on, like, you know, the 2nd of January and makes the gym some kind of like music festival rather than an actual gym. How's your week in Stars been, dude?
It's been, it's quiet. I mean, you know, it's been quiet. I mean, Willow's finished now. Bad Batch is with us, which is enjoyable. Do enjoy Bad Batch. We've got the review of the first couple of episodes, first 3 episodes actually, up on the site now. So that's up and running for the season. Everyone's waiting for Mandalorian, of course, which is only a few weeks away on the 1st of March. And, skipping ahead a bit, what did you make of the trailer?
I thought the trailer was pretty cool. It is like the first real public trailer, isn't it? It's like the first one that's kind of been out. And were you at Celebration? Did you actually see the Celebration trailer in the room? Or
I didn't. I was at Celebration, but I didn't see the trailer in the room. I did see it consequently.
The CG, the environments and everything just looked absolutely stonking. I mean, admittedly, not a huge amount to go on story-wise. I mean, there was a couple of like fairly overt lines about kind of going back to Mandalore and stuff, which speaks to the armourer. It seemed like lots of pretty pictures and, you know, nice to see Carl Weathers back. And it looks like, actually, that Navarro town is flourishing.
It's definitely on the up, isn't it? It took me a second. I was thinking, is that Navarro? That looks like Navarro. You see the little Kowakian monkey lizard, which is kind of a throwback to the first time you see Navarro with the one on the spit. And yeah, it is. They've tiled the floors and they've spruced up the town. It's good to see the place looking so well. And I've just been reviewing, actually, the Season 1 adaptation that Marvel have done. It's kind of superfluous to requirements because, you know, it literally follows the...
Is it?
You know, it really is, yeah. But it's fun for what it is, and the covers are gorgeous. But the one I reviewed the most recently was the 7th episode, where Greef Karga is basically going to sell them out to the client and has that change of heart. And I think that weirdly bonded the two characters more than... before they've got a working relationship, but when he gets that moment, and that's when Greef gets attacked by that dragon type creature and the venom goes in and Grogu draws the poison out. You know, and I think that pulled the characters together. So when you see Mando and Greef Karga together now, I always think, well, that's kind of cool. They've kind of earned that trust and friendship between the two of them. I loved the trailer. I thought the visuals, like you say, were phenomenal. And yeah, it doesn't give a lot away. I mean, Mando's going back to Mandalore. He wants to clear his name, essentially, and get his honour back. But I think the big takeaway for me was him saying, you know, what are we? What are we about, basically? What are we in this sort of post-war era, which is where we find ourselves now? That's going to be interesting. You know, if Mando is the guy that gives a meaning and a purpose to Mandalorians who seem to have spent decades kind of living on the underground and staying out of the way and replenishing their numbers almost. You know, now they can be out there and proudly do what they do, but maybe not quite so hacking people down just for the hell of it.
Not only do we see Greef Karga, we get a lovely shot, I suppose lovely being the optimum word, of Pelimoto. So she at least makes an appearance in one episode.
Yeah.
There's a shot of them, isn't it, kind of flying away from, I guess, maybe Mos Espa.
Yeah.
There's all these kind of fireworks. Now, it could be a celebration of the fact that they kicked the syndicates out of Mos Espa.
Yeah.
i.e. kind of like a reference back to the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Or maybe it could just be some kind of celebration of the fact that, I don't know, 5 years or 6 years now after, the Battle of Endor. So like almost an independence jump into a planet which I didn't think we would actually really see again. That's Coruscant.
Yeah, and seeing the shot of the Dr. Pershing in the taxi cab with that very prequel trilogy looking droid, I like the look of that. I also like the look of Coruscant once again having that neon feel to it, because we've seen it so much in Andor looking really grey and run down and drabby almost, because that's the Imperial era, and they're not going to be turning neon lights on and shooting fireworks into the air. That's not what they're about. But you go back to a Coruscant that is a Republic, essentially a Republic Coruscant, like it had been for so long, and it feels like they've turned the lights on again. So I really did dig, brief as it was, I really did dig that. But I do have a question for you. You do see a shot of 4 or 5 Jedi, lightsabers out, facing a door. My gut feeling is that's a flashback. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, and I think that's possibly why they've gone back to Coruscant. Maybe there's some kind of Grogu side quest going on here for a couple of episodes where we go back to Coruscant. I mean, I suppose the other thing, thinking about it, as we are leading into the sequel trilogy, this could be the first actual appearance of Hosnian Prime.
That's a good point.
Because that's the whole thing, wasn't it? And I think it was in the Aftermath trilogy where I think they kind of decided, we're going to start moving the capital around the galaxy once every 100 years. So maybe this is the first time that we do that. Which again, it would be kind of cool. I mean, for me, obviously, and probably the same for you, I much prefer it were Coruscant. But I suppose again, if we're trying to play the overall story arc and that, it could potentially be Hosnian Prime equally. But I think because of a Jedi shot, and I think it possibly is a flashback, I reckon it's going to be Coruscant.
Are you expecting, I mean, that's a good point actually about Grogu, because we know he's starting to get his memory back. It's there to be retrieved, if you like. And so as much as Mando is on a quest to regain his honour and find a place for the Mandalorian, and himself, of course, but find a place for the Mandalorians. And also when you see the shots of him and Grogu in the ship, in the N1, it feels like Mando is sort of explaining a little bit to Grogu about what, being a Mandalorian is not just about fighting, it's about navigating the galaxy. He's not just talking about, literally navigating, flying from planet to planet, but figuring out how to be, so that wherever you are, you kind of, that's it's home, he says it. I just wonder with Grogu, how much are we going to see of that memory coming back? Will we ever hear him speak? I think you're right. I think going to Coruscant makes a lot of sense, because we know he was trained at the temple, because Ahsoka says it in season 2. So going back there, maybe some connective thought processes, seeing stuff will bring things back, seeing the temple again. And
that's actually a very good idea, because, they do that, don't they, with victims of crime, stuff like that. Sometimes they take them back and, they walk them through the area where, a robbery happened or something like that. And actually just by being there, it kind of unlocks things that the subconscious has, locked off. So, it might then suddenly, give him access to more training or, something else. I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's like if we don't hear him speak just randomly in the in the middle of like a series, and they build it up to be something like right near the end, unless he sounds like Mel Blanc, Tofurkey from Project of the 25th Century, I think I'm going to be a bit gutted. It's almost a bit like the name thing, because he was
what name's that?
Grogu.
The Grogu,
So rather than make it a big thing, they almost just dropped it into the episode, and therefore it kind of just feels a little bit more natural.
Hello, my name is Aidan Cook, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Now, there's basically 2 versions, isn't there, of this trailer? You've got the official one, which has kind of come out on YouTube, but also there's like a Disney Plus version, which seems to have a couple of extra shots. Now, a couple of extra shots are to do with like a Star Destroyer being like dismantled or being put back together. So I suppose it depends on which way you're looking at it. I just wonder, in the kind of grand scheme of things, is this just like another one of these marketing ploys to try and get a few more subscribers to Disney Plus? I mean, well, what other mileage is there really in doing something like this? Having 2 slightly different versions of the trailer.
Well, I wasn't aware that there was the 2 until just before we started recording, because I've literally just watched it, and then I saw one of the chat threads, one of the lads mentioned that there's 2 trailers, so I do need to see the one with the Star Destroyer, but I think it's clever marketing, because they know that everyone in our sort of corner of the galaxy, anybody who's got an interest in Star Wars is going to want to see those trailers. And presumably, most people will have seen the ones the regular one, I'm waggling the air quotes, the regular one
Yeah.
that's available on YouTube, and you can get to it through Star Wars social media feeds and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. I think it's exactly what you say. I think it's if you're on the precipice of, maybe now's the time to get Disney Plus, because all my friends are watching Mando, and I've seen it, but I've watched it at a friend's house. Maybe this is the time to do it. Yeah, I think it is a little bit of a marketing ploy, and quite a savvy one, actually. So, I've got Disney Plus already, so I'm going to go and watch it in a bit. But, yeah, I think the more they do of that, and we've still got, how many days? 40-something days until Season 3 arrives. So we've got plenty of time for little stings and little social media clips and little bits and bobs before we get there. I don't think this is the last thing we're going to see of Season 3. I hope it isn't. I don't want them to give the farm away, but, there's little things they can hint and drop in. And I'm certain if Season 3 is anything like Season 2, Ahsoka, for example, which was huge, and you've got to imagine that the next show sequentially after this is Ahsoka. And so if she turned up in Season 3 of Mando, you wouldn't be surprised. But then who else is going to be with her? There's the opportunity for maybe the first time you see live action Sabine isn't in Ahsoka, but maybe it's in Mando Season 3. I don't know. So there's all these opportunities. So back to your point, yeah, I think it's a clever little bit of marketing.
Yeah, that's actually that's a really, really good thought, actually, when you think about it like that, actually, dude. That makes a lot of sense. Again, it's like almost then becomes a bit of a soft pilot by introducing the character in another series, which is kind of really what they've done. They did that almost with Fennec, and to a certain degree with Boba as well, when you think about it, and Ahsoka. So it makes sense that actually, you could see Ahsoka pop up again, and this time maybe have Sabine tagging along. So if that's the case, that's fantastic. But yeah, we don't have like loads of time to wait. It's going to drop, and I don't know if we've had any kind of indication of like how many episodes the season has, or like if we're going to have double bills and stuff like that. But you would think that it's going to run right up and past Celebration Europe, wouldn't you? At least by like maybe a couple of weeks, unless of course they double up the episodes.
I think of all the shows that they don't need to double up, you look back at Andor, we spoke about it at length on reaction chats, and we were very conscious what a fantastic season that was. But good grief, those first three episodes, and initially it was supposed to be 2. And then they put it back a month, didn't they? And made it 3. And you look and you go, actually, putting those 3 together was quite a masterstroke, because they were slow and it was a lot of world building. And if you love just being in the galaxy, then great. But if you're a kind of just a general TV viewer watching those 3 episodes, you're like, where are the lightsabers? Where's the Force? Where are the spaceships? What's happening? Nothing's happening. There's just people sitting around talking. It was quite slow. But for us who love the era and understand where this is going, or ultimately where it's going, this was just all fascinating stuff to soak up. So that show needed, a 2 or a 3 episode thing. Bad Batch, they can do, animation's different. So Bad Batch, they can open with 2 episodes, and mid-season there's 2, and at the end there's 2. That's different. Mando, it's the mothership. It doesn't need the rub. Mando first episode comes out, and that's its own thing, and everyone's going to be talking about it. And good grief, I'm certain we'll get to the end of that first episode on March the 1st and do our reaction chat probably on March the 2nd and go, God, we should put 2 episodes out. I can't wait for next week. But they don't need to, because they've got us hooked. They know they've got us hooked. Unless they really drop the ball, which I can't see, they've got us.
I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, and you are following Fantha Tracks.
So at the back end of last year, I was fortunate enough to spend time on the phone talking to Vivien Lyra Blair. You'll know Vivien. She was young Princess Leia in the recent Obi-Wan Kenobi series on Disney+. And there's loads to talk about. Myself and Vivien Lyra Blair, young Princess Leia.
Did you have an awesome Christmas?
I really did. I think this Christmas was probably one of my best. I got really cool stuff, and I think I gave a lot of really cool stuff too. And I think one of my favorite parts was I worked really hard on this homemade gift for my dad, and he really loved it, and it was so sweet, his reaction, and I think it just really made my Christmas that.
So are you one of those people that prefers giving gifts or receiving gifts?
I don't know. I've always been more of a receiving gifts person, I feel like, but now that I'm a little bit older, giving gifts has been really amazing, and seeing people's reactions. It's so sweet. And so I think I'm a little bit of both. I don't think I can say for sure that I'm one or the other, but I think this Christmas I leaned more to the giving than the getting.
Awesome. Now, you're in sunny California, so I'm assuming it was quite warm for your Christmas.
Yes, it was 75 and sunny.
Wow. So what in when it's 75 and sunny, here it was not 75 and sunny. So we had all the turkey and the trimmings. What is a Christmas for you guys?
Well, we go out to see my grandparents and our family on both my parents' sides because they kind of all live in one little neighborhood. And we start the morning, of course, with opening gifts. We maybe watch a Christmas movie while we're opening gifts. We go down and see all the relatives and stuff. And then we don't really do much for Christmas dinner, to be honest. We're not those people, especially because we're vegetarian, and I know like ham and turkey is more of like a Christmas feast thing. So we might do Tofurkey or something, like try and keep it in the spirit of the holidays, but we don't really do much for like a Christmas dinner style. It's mostly just seeing family and opening presents for us.
So what kind of things are you into?
Well, I am into rainbow high dolls. Those are probably my favorite toy and one that I have the most of. But I am a huge stuffed animal person. I think my stuffed animal collection is probably the biggest in at least all of California. I have 2 full bean bags, and a bed full, and a few parts of a closet full.
Wow.
So, yeah, I have a lot of stuffed animals. I really like horror games, but not like actually playing them. One of my favorite hobbies is to find a horror game and just get really deep into the lore, like just go on that like fandom wiki of that game and just go from page to page to page to page, just researching the entire storyline. And it's actually really fun. It's really cool to do like at night and just learn all about the reasons why like the monsters are attacking instead of just get the monsters away. So so I think I have a lot of fun doing that. That's probably one of my biggest hobbies. And then of course Doctor Who. I'm really into robots, so I fell in love with the Daleks. So I think part of the reason I kept leaving was I came to this little Doctor Who stand that had a lot of like little mini Daleks and stuff. I was so excited because there's not actually a lot of Doctor Who stuff in the US since it's a really popular UK show, but not as popular here. So it's like when you go on Amazon, you can't find like any Dalek stuff. If you go on Amazon UK, it's all over the place. But if you go on Amazon US, it's just not there. So when I got there and I saw all the Dalek stuff, I was like, and it was just really fun.
You must be really excited for the new Doctor Who stuff coming then.
Yes, I am. I'm very excited. I'm especially excited to see David Tennant again with the rumors going around, since I just really loved him. He was probably my favorite Doctor. Between him and Matt Smith, I think, are just 2 really great Doctors, and it's really cool to see him come back for the new season.
Now, Obi-Wan Kenobi, everybody at Fantha Tracks absolutely loved it. And we had so much good reaction. We did a show, Good Reaction Chats, when we would talk about it every week on the podcast, and we loved the show. For you, coming into the Star Wars galaxy now as an actress, but also as somebody who enjoys this kind of, you know, you've got varied interests in different sort of genres. How did it feel to you coming into this world for the first time?
Well, I was incredibly nervous that I wouldn't be accepted into the Star Wars universe because it's such a, you know, it's its own thing. It's like its own, it really is its own universe, its own galaxy far, far away. And so it was really scary, but I mean, I have gotten just so much love. Everybody's been so protective of me from haters, and it's just so sweet and so amazing that I get to be part of this and that I get welcomed into it so amazingly.
when you're working in that environment then, and when you've got the story flowing around your head and all the lines you've got to learn, all the costume changes, because we see you on Alderaan and then we see you on other planets. How interesting is it? Because you're not filming it in order, you're filming bits here and bits there. So how do you kind of keep it all together in your head?
Well, honestly, this is one of the few projects that actually did a really good job of keeping it kind of in order. So, like, we did the Alderaan stuff first. So, like, the actual, like, tree scenes and the scenes with that, I'd rather be digested by a Jacko beast. Those were all kind of, like, right in their own thing at the beginning of filming. So, like, they were jumbled up a little bit, but it was, like, close enough that it worked for me. And everybody there was really good about keeping it close. But, you know, a little bit of the issue was they were so protective of the script. So, like, they wouldn't send us the script the night before. We would get it in the morning and hope you knew it by the time you were called to say, you know. So it was a little bit difficult, but I have, like, incredible memory. So it was really simple for me, but mom would always be like, how do you remember that all in, like, an hour? And I was like, I don't know. I think really in auditions, it's difficult to remember lines because, you know, it doesn't feel natural. But once I'm actually on set, and I'm, like, in the moment, the set pieces are all there, I'm on the volume, the other actors are right in front of me, then it just kind of comes naturally to me. And I think that's part of what makes me a good actor.
And one thing people were very excited about, Deborah Chow did some amazing work on The Mandalorian, and then, of course, was the director on Obi-Wan Kenobi. So when you're working with Deborah, what was she like? She comes over so well on various documentaries. She seems really tuned into the story being the focus in a situation where the technology could very easily overwhelm it. What was she like to work with for you?
I mean, she was just absolutely incredible. Such a nice person and just always so nice. What I really loved is that she actually took my suggestions into consideration. And, like, a lot of people I've worked with, or just people in general, anytime I make a suggestion, they're very much like, what would you know? You're just a kid. And they'll be like, yeah, sure. And then they will never actually take it into consideration. Deborah did. She knew that I was pretty mature for my age. And so when I had a suggestion, she was like, yeah, let's try it on this one. And then we'll try it my way on the next one, see which works better in editing. And so we did. And then sometimes she would say, you know, I still like mine better. And sometimes she would say, actually, yours works a lot better. And then like there were pieces, like one of my favorite little Easter eggs is there's a scene in the hallway when the window cracks and it drowns a bunch of stormtroopers.
Yeah.
I brought up a point where I said, she showed me the imperial fishes that swim along when Ewan's swimming to rescue me. And it just became like a thing. I thought they were so cute. I called them the imperial fishies. And then I brought up a point where I said, well, when the water comes in, if there's so many imperial fishies outside, then why wouldn't they come in with the water as well? So she was like, actually, that's a good point. And if you look really closely, there are some small imperial fishies gnawing at the bodies when the waves come in. And those were actually put in from a suggestion from me, and it was really sweet.
We need to start a petition to actually call them imperial fishes. That's got to happen. That totally needs to happen. So for you as an actor, then, that must be wonderful to have the ear of the director and to be able to suggest ideas and know that at the very least, the director's taking it seriously. And like you say, some may work and some might not, but that must be brilliant for you.
It was just amazing. I do get underestimated a lot because of my age and my size. You know, a lot of people mistake me for a lot younger than I am. And even if they don't, I'm still only 10. So 10?
I thought you were 22.
So, people that don't take the time to get to know me, don't really understand that my suggestions are real and I really mean them and they could really help. And it was just really amazing that Deborah thought that way and that she didn't see age. She just saw good suggestions and not good ones. And she tried them anyway, even if she didn't think they'd work out. And sometimes she was right. And sometimes she was like, actually, that's pretty good. And, it was really sweet. And it just felt so nice to be heard.
Absolutely. And also, I guess if you're getting the lines on the day, you're very much in the moment then, aren't you? So it's really at the front of your head.
Definitely.
So you're in the Star Wars galaxy now, and you're not going anywhere. Hopefully, as a fan, I'm hoping we see more of you. And there's, we're nearly into 2023 as we speak, and there's a big celebration coming up in London, and other events are happening. So my question is, with fandom, are you hoping to be around more and do more and be more available and do other things? How much do you enjoy that side of it?
Definitely. It's been really amazing. Lucasfilm PR was explaining me a little. They couldn't qualify for the Emmys this year, so they're going to qualify for the Emmys next year. So next year they're going to do a huge PR push and do like a bunch of like Comic-Cons and signings and interviews and like a bunch of stuff for Obi-Wan. So hopefully I'm going to get a little bit more of my moment in the spotlight next year with a lot more interviews. So yeah, I think that's going to be pretty cool next year. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of me, hopefully. And I really hope so that I get to appear in another series as well. I think that would be really awesome.
Oh, everybody would think that would be awesome. And Obi-Wan is your focus, of course. What other Star Wars stuff have you enjoyed? You mentioned when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that you'd binged all the films. Which of the films were the ones that really grabbed you?
Well, I really liked the prequels. I think that was more my generation. I know that the last three were definitely more my generation, but I just like the prequels more, I think, to be honest. I thought it was really nice to get to see the backstory. As I mentioned earlier, I am definitely into the lore and the backstories of anything I'm into, more than just the actual in the moment things that are happening. And I think that's why I enjoyed the prequels so much.
And you mentioned earlier that you would love to be a writer, that's something you want to do in the future. So within the Star Wars world, if you like, what would you like to write? Would you like to write a book? Would you like to write a comic or a kid's book or a guidebook? What would you like to write?
Well, actually, I am a published author. I have a kid's book written on Amazon called Spider School that I wrote when I was 3 before I even started acting.
Wow.
And I have quite a few scripts that I have the first draft finished. And, I do just love to write. I love to tell stories, whether it's actually acting in them or being the one behind the camera. And I think it's really awesome that I definitely want to stay in the business when I'm older, but I want to get behind the camera a little bit more.
Well, absolutely. I've got no doubt. Hopefully we'll speak again in the future. I've got no doubt that if we ever do, it won't just be for acting. It'll be Vivien the director or Vivien the writer or Vivien the producer. So the future is bright, isn't it?
Yeah, I really hope so. I mean, I'm already a producer, an author, and I've got a few scripts written already. So, I think it's definitely a possibility, a probability even.
Well, this is wonderful. When I was 10, I was playing with my Empire Strikes Back action figures. I was doing a little bit of fan fiction, so I was writing as well, but not like you. So I bow down to you. I think you're fantastic. I'm so glad you joined us today. We're really, really grateful. It's been so lovely to speak to you, and hopefully we'll speak again in the future.
Yeah, this was really awesome. I mean, I was definitely excited when I heard podcasts because I've always wanted to do one. I think it's so cool. My dad listens to them every day, and I think it would be really awesome to be on a podcast. So getting this opportunity was just incredible. Thank you for letting me be here today. It was really a great time.
everything in one location. Daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds. Bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
Yeah! 2023 is here, mate, and we've got a listener's question. Are you ready for this wonderful listener's question?
Yes.
Good. Right, here we go. Okay, hi guys and Happy New Year. With several new Star Wars TV series starting this year, which of these are you most looking forward to, and which, if any, are you trepidatious about? It's a good word. For me, it's The Acolyte in both categories. That's an interesting answer. Cheers from Jake Skywalker's evil twin. So thank you, Jake Skywalker's evil twin. That's a good question. So Star Wars TV shows, there's a couple coming this year. Hopefully, we assume. What are you looking forward to, and what are you thinking, ooh?
To be honest, and thank you, Jake's evil twin, there's none that actually fills me with trepidation. The Acolyte, for me, is probably the one that I least excited about. And that's because we don't know a huge amount about it. It's set in a different time period. And so it's going to be this whole new thing. So it's going to, it could very much be a little bit like Andor in that it's a thing that surprises a lot of people. Obviously, we've just spoken about Mandalorian, and I think that's probably might be number one. But I think Ahsoka's got to be up there pretty high as well. I am curious just because the scuttlebutt is that it's going to heavily revolve around like finding a resolution to the end of Rebels.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that makes me go, well, I really liked Rebels and I liked everything they did in Rebels. However, I'm just wondering how that then lands with the slightly more wider non-Star Wars fans who watch animation and stuff like that. So that might be the one, not necessarily personally, but maybe from a slightly more, a wider community aspect. I wonder how that's going to land.
We're assuming Acolyte's coming out this year. I know they're still filming it. I would imagine it'll be this year, but maybe not.
Again, it all depends, doesn't it? You think about, they're just now saying that, was it 2024 that Andor's coming out? It's a whole year, like a good whole year. So it's doable. I suppose it all depends. I would think that the fact that production was well underway by the end of last year, but they might just sneak it in, maybe at the back end of the year.
Yeah, I agree with you for the most part. I think Ahsoka I'm intrigued by. I think there's a lot on the line for Filoni in terms of he's nurtured that character so carefully, and she's the character he's most associated with, so I would imagine the pressure on him would be tremendous. I think with Ahsoka, you've got a fairly decent idea, especially because of seeing her in Book of Boba Fett and having met her again in Mandalorian. Her turning up on screen now won't be a surprise physically. How you view her, how you hear her, we've seen that in 2 shows already. I think The Acolyte, if that comes out in 23 or 24, but it's on the horizon, that's a gamble because it's the High Republic era, but the end of the High Republic era. It's a new era to sort of delve into. So there's certain inherent risks there. The show I think is the biggest risk, and I'm not trepidatious about it, but I am very curious, is Skeleton Crew. If they get a Henry Thomas turns up and it's like Elliot turns up in Star Wars and he's just a kid that just feels like a real kid that could be your friend, then it'll be great. If they've not cast it right, if they don't write it just so, then it might not work. What gives me confidence is you've got Jude Law heading it up, who's pretty much good in everything he does. That's a really safe pair of hands. The guy that's directing it has just come off the back of the Spider-Man trilogy, the 3 Spider-Man films. So all the constituent parts are there for it to be really, really good and to reach out and get a younger audience. I mean, Star Wars has got a young audience anyway and always has, but if it can really viscerally grab kids, the kids will watch this show thinking, I want to be one of those kids. That's what you want. That's the hook to bring people in.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the hook. To be fair, that is the one that I am least... Well, I didn't even think about it, to be fair. Even when I was thinking about, when I was listening to the question. And I suppose, again, it all depends upon, we've seen this with some shows like Stranger Things and stuff like that. It's got kids in it and the new Ghostbusters film. But it's, it's not necessarily for kids per se.
Yeah.
So, so they, there's definitely scope that if they do it well, they could do it in a way that could potentially be accessible to everybody. But if it's not, and if it is only accessible or directed at a younger demographic, that's fine with me. I was young once, and when I got into Star Wars, and so we shouldn't say, well, now that I'm older, that you now need to do everything in a mature tones because that's what I want.
And we've just had an interview with a young actress who just turned up in Obi-Wan Kenobi and arguably stole the show. So when it's done right, when you get the right person involved and the script is right and the performers around that young actor are right, it can really make it work. And that element, that young Leia element of Obi-Wan, was perfect. And my head tells me that would have given them confidence to go, okay, Skeleton Crew was probably in the works before Vivien Lyra Blair was even cast. But nevertheless, you know, that probably gave them confidence to go, well, look how well that worked out. Let's push on and do more of this kind of thing, because it does work within the grander scope of everything. And it's a little bit like when we were talking about Mandalorian trailer earlier, about going back to Coruscant. It's, isn't it nice to see Coruscant with the neon? We've just had Coruscant with all the grey in Andor, and you stack the two things together, and you visually they might not look like they're the same thing, but they are. You know, in real life, you put your Christmas lights up at Christmas, and your house looks like a different house. So you know, you can make these things work together. You can put it together and make it feel like the whole. But there's nothing that gives me nerves. I'm looking forward to season 2 Visions. I think that's going to be fun as well. So there's a few things this year that should be really interesting.
Hello, I'm Dennis Lawson, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Late last year, we were fortunate to travel down to Croydon and interview a great bunch of veteran Star Wars actors, among them Michael Culver. Michael played Captain Needa in The Empire Strikes Back. I had the good fortune to sit down with him for a few minutes whilst he was reading a book, interviewed him about his career, how he got the role. Just have a listen to the interview, and then I will come back to you afterwards. But just have a listen. This is me and Michael Culver at Croydon.
So we're here in Croydon. It's raining outside, but it's sunny inside. I'm here with Michael Culver. Do you get out to many shows? I've seen you at a few. I think the last time I saw you was at the NEC. It's been a while ago.
Yes, no, I don't. I try not. I don't want 2 or 3 a year.
2 or 3 years, good for you. Yeah. Obviously, being, as you can tell, Star Wars nerds. What are your basic questions to kick off? What are your recollections of working on that show? How did you get cast? That's the first question, really. How did you come into it?
It was a very quick week's work in Elstree in 1978.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about it. I went to an interview. I obviously passed the interview, and I then went down and did a quick week's work. They'd measured me up for a costume. I wore the costume. The director was a very nice guy called Irving Kershner. He was charming and very specific and very succinct in what he wanted done. I did what he wanted done, and at the end of the week left, and that's all there is to it.
Right. Why did they pick you, Michael? Why were you the guy?
The faintest idea. Maybe really? Because I'd done something military stuff. I don't know. They could have seen me in some sort of, with a neat uniform somewhere. I don't know. It's always a mystery to an actor as to why they get the next job.
I often ask that, you know. I often wonder do you ever get a sense that this is going the right way when you're doing the audition, or do you find out a week later?
I often think things are going quite the wrong way, but nonetheless, there's not a lot you can do about it as an actor.
Right.
You're stuck. You've got to say the lines, hit the marks. That's your job. Sometimes I think the script is crap. Sometimes I think the director is crap.
Yeah.
You have to keep on and do the job.
Do you think some actors overcomplicate it? Or do you think it is as straightforward? It's not as straightforward. I couldn't do it. You've got the skill. Is it as straightforward as hit the mark, say the lines, or where does it sit?
Show. I mean, it depends on the show. I mean, if you put on a uniform and you have 4 lines to say about shoot that down, it's not exactly hard work. He's escaped. He must have a cloaking device. I mean, these are not Shakespeare. This is fairly basic dialogue and not particularly difficult to say or learn. What can I say? I don't wish to decry the entire Star Wars thing. It's extraordinary. I mean, I'm sitting here going, I'm 84 now. I did this when I was about 40, and people still want to know about it. I find it extraordinary. And children growing up and now getting indoctrinated.
I was going to say, does it surprise you? Does it disappoint you that people haven't moved on to other things?
No. When I was growing up, all there was science fiction books.
Yeah.
All of the great science fiction writers. And I read most of them as a teenager. I loved science fiction. But and I did do Blake 7, but I didn't really know what I was doing in that, and it was nothing.
Yeah.
I don't really remember it, to be quite honest. It was so long ago. So when I did Star Wars, it just seemed to me, they're doing a movie about starships.
Yeah.
So I did it. But I never thought, I just thought, well, I hope it's successful. As one thinks, all one's jobs hope they're successful.
Has there ever been another job you've done outside of Star Wars when you thought, this could be the one that really catches on, this could be something that goes crazy big?
No, and I didn't expect Star Wars to.
No.
As I say, it was a quick week's work. You don't expect 40 years later to be still signing autographs for it. It's just very peculiar. No, it's a one-off. It's very odd. There was a wonderful program about how they made all the props.
Yes.
The other day.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
I don't know, was it on BBC 4, 2
I think it was
1?
on 4, yeah.
It was on 4. Fascinating program.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. And wonderful and really British in its attitude to making things. I mean, it was all bits of old rubbish that they made, stuck together and turned into something extraordinary. Brilliant. But as actors, it really was just turn up, hit the mark, say the lines and bugger off.
Yeah.
That's all it was. I can't claim that it was a great acting experience. It was just a very simple week's work.
But given all of that it wasn't the most, it didn't light you up, it didn't, it was what it was.
Yeah.
A pleasant offshoot of that.
No. I enjoyed the week. Everybody was fine. And the director was particularly nice. So it was a very nice week's work. But I can't pretend that I thought at the time that it was any more than a nice week's work.
Yes.
I didn't think it was going to be a,
And here you are in Croydon 40 years later.
And here I am in Croydon 40 years later. Hoping I'll have enough signatures.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you will.
See how it goes.
Well, thank you for your time.
Not at all.
He's kind of trodden this ground about how he got the role for 40 years, and then I come clod-hopping in, going, oh, what was it like when you got the role in The Empire Strikes Back? So I think he was kind of a bit bored of answering that question, but I think I won him over in the end. He seemed a bit happier at the end of it. I mean, we have got a really nice photograph, and he had a nice big smile on his face, but do you feel for I felt for him in a way, because he must have been asked this question a million times.
Exactly, and I just think that goes to show how unoriginal journalism has got in the 21st century. I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? I always feel bad. You go and speak to an actor, and you're like, I'm talking to you about something that's 40 years ago, and you've done so much since then. But we're going to talk about that thing that you did for maybe a week or a couple of weeks 40 years ago, and although I'm not expecting you to remember everything as if it was yesterday, you probably think that I do, and it's difficult, and I do struggle with it sometimes when I go up to get an autograph. What do you say to that person? And it's not about being starstruck. It's like, okay, how can I avoid asking those stupid questions?
You want to acknowledge it, but you want to be respectful as well.
Exactly. It is a difficult thing, but I think you want him around there, buddy. I think he kind of warmed up to you. There was this funny time at
slipping him a £20 note helped. I'm gonna say
does help, exactly. You want to interview them whilst they're signing, whilst they're actually earning their money from you. But there was a funny little story that happened at Collectomania with us, the Rebel Legion. We had a droid with us. We had Nick Harbour's droid from the Droid Builders. He had an R5. And Collectomania, first thing in the morning, wasn't particularly busy on that weekend. And they had the chap who played the lead character in Iron Fist. On the Sunday, the Saturday, we kind of didn't overstay our welcome around the signers. Some of them obviously literally see a droid and see costumes and go, oh my God, it's amazing, can I get a photo? And others just have either seen it time and time again or just aren't fast. It was on a Sunday and it was a bit quiet in the afternoon, and so we thought we'll just take the droid out for a bit of a roll around, stretch his legs as it were. And so we just went past the tables really close, and this dude had basically been reading his book for the whole day. Literally, he hadn't had any sign it, anybody come up to him to sign an autograph. And he's just his head down in the book, and this droid comes up to him, and then all us about 5 feet away, he just looks up and he just goes and his head goes back down. And it's just like, wow, well, that will be why you haven't had any autograph signers today, because they probably don't even think you actually want to be here.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I can kind of, I can kind of understand. So we had 2 brilliant interviews and a nice little bit of chatter. Nice to be back. Thank you very much all for listening. And of course, thank you to Mr. Jake Skywalker's evil twin. Yeah. That's a name that just rolls off the tongue, isn't it?
Doesn't it?
Yeah. If you'd like to be like Jake Skywalker's evil twin brother and you'd like to send a question in, you most certainly can do, and we definitely encourage it. And Mark can tell you how you can do it.
I certainly can, for the first time in 2023. Well, thanks for listening to Making Tracks as always. If you want to be a part of the action and stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, visit fanthatracks.com or check out the free Panther Tracks app through the App Store to follow us on your mobile device. You can reach out to us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@panthertracks.com. So anyone, everyone within earshot of this podcast, send in your questions. We will talk about it. Comment, like and share on any of our social media feeds at Panther Tracks, and be sure to subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Semple for composing the Panther Tracks intro, Adam O'Brien for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. Remember, tune in to Good Morning Tatooine. It's live Sundays and Thursday evenings when there's a live action show going on at 9 o'clock UK time, 4 PM Eastern and 1 PM Pacific on Facebook and YouTube. And check out our Panther Tracks Radio Friday night rotation every Friday night at 7 o'clock UK time for new episodes of The Panther from Down Under, Planet Leia, Desert Planet Discs, Start Your Engines, Collecting Tracks, Cannon Fodder, and special episodes of Making Tracks. And every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock UK time for your weekly episode of Making Tracks. And for the first time this year, that's me done for this episode.
Well done, my friend. Only got another 52 episodes to go.
A breeze. A breeze.
Simple. Okay, and we will catch everybody else next week for next week's episode. So until then, stay safe, take care, and of course, may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Panther Tracks Radio, it's another episode of Making Tracks.